Good morning. Welcome. Sunday, August 9th. How's it going? My name is Angela. I'm a front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. How are we doing? On this channel, we mostly do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Last couple of weeks, though, we've been doing a deep dive into agentic workflows, prompt engineering. We started out calling it vibe coding, and I think we've moved firmly into calling it an agentic workflow, prompt engineering. It's not vibe coding. It's not vibe coding. It's anything but vibe coding. Yesterday, I have mixed feelings about yesterday. So, first of all, everything went well yesterday. We also established a great workflow between Codex and ChatGPT because we rely heavily on ChatGPT to help us write those prompts. And clearly, I facilitate the conversation between the chat and the agent, right? So that we need to give these things names because yes, it's ChatGPT, but I know that they all sort of work on this premise, right? That Anthropic has don't they all have like the chat version and the agent version? Isn't that the sort of the nuts and bolts of all of this setup, the structure for all of this? I think it is. So clearly the human is the person who understands the requirements, the project, the users, the goals of whomever it is that's building the thing, whether that's your employer, your client, whomever. Okay, but now instead of actually writing the code, we define the requirements and we facilitate this conversation between the agent and the chat. I don't know. I'm trying to sort all this out. I'm on board. I'm not fighting against what it now means to be a developer. I'm not. I'm trying to learn it and understand it and develop my own way of doing it. So forgive me. I guess I'm doing all of this in public. I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, I think I have a handle on it. I've definitely used it professionally. I understand why it's a good thing. I'm not here to say that AI is bad. I am sorry to see so many people out of a job. I don't know what's going to happen to the future of developers or software engineers. I don't know. I just have a lot of mixed feelings. So yesterday, the day ended successfully in that we accomplished our goals. I, however, did not write any code. I was a facilitator. I spent 2 hours being a facilitator between chat and agent. That's what I did for 2 hours. And at the end of those 2 hours, we accomplished our goals. We moved the project forward, but I didn't write any code. And it was quite frankly mind-numbing. That's how it felt. It felt boring. So if I was at work doing this, if I was an employee and I was at work and this was now part of my job, I don't think that I don't know if I would be thinking as deeply about this as I am now. But because I'm doing this in public, I'm doing this as part of a live stream, I'm thinking more about it. And the things I think about are like, is this entertaining? Is this something that people actually want to watch and understand and learn from? I don't know. Yes, no. Some people do, some people don't. So maybe that I don't need to worry so much about that. So part of why it felt really boring to me was because it didn't feel like it was particularly entertaining for you. So there's that. But also personally, it was just kind of mind-numbing. Usually when I finish a stream, I feel really excited because I got to see my feedback loop, the thing that keeps me going as a developer all these years, especially in front-end development, is that I've set up this feedback loop for myself. So no matter how hard it gets, no matter how frustrating it gets, or how sideways a project goes, I still get the feedback of write code, refresh browser, see the thing that I just wrote happen in the browser. That's what I love about front end and development and software engineering. I love that experience. It's what keeps me going. This is sucking a little bit of the joy out of it for me. And I very much look at my YouTube channel and these live streams as how I balance my personal and my professional. Because for so many years, I wasn't doing anything personal. I was only going to work and writing code at work and then coming home, and I didn't want to look at a computer. I didn't have personal projects. I was still doing the thing that I loved doing. So it was okay. So if professional now turns into me being a facilitator between chat and agent, okay, I want to be a good employee. I want to produce good code. I want to get projects done quickly and efficiently and keep the organization moving forward and continue to get paid, of course. That means then that the personal is more important than ever. And I can't stream for 2 hours and feel like I was completely bored. And it can't feel like a mind-numbing experience. So I guess this is my very long-winded way of saying that we're probably not going to do this again on stream because I don't think it's entertaining or particularly interesting. I think in the future, if I decide to build a full stack app, I may take a stream to do some of the work or some of the prep or describe the project, maybe more like a presentation, but also a working session, go off and build the back end and then come back and build the front end. Because if I keep doing back full stack apps, which I think I will, I can't spend 2 weeks, 6 days prompting codecs. This is day 6 of prompting codecs. I'm bored. This is mind numbing. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me what you think. All 3 of you. I guess that's my answer for how exciting it is for everybody else. We got to get back to some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We got to give the people what they want. I don't think this is it. I'm glad I did it. It's a good experiment. I never regret the choices that I make on this channel or the things that I decide I'm going to learn in public. I never regret that. But I'm also just like, oh, note to self, we don't need to do this again. Okay. Malik Robinson is here. Go Elmo. Mod in the chat. Thanks for being here, Malik. Malik says, oh, you're showing the process. Think it's good to see for some. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And we're not replacing front end with codecs. We're building a back end. And also, to be very clear, if we add up all the time, so up until this point, let's call it 10 hours, excluding today, that's a very respectable amount of time for building out an entire back end and a database, right? We're now entering the API phase of this project and we're at 10 hours. So let's call it 2 work days. If you went to work and you were given these requirements and you figured out all of the requirements, which we did, you figured out all of the requirements, did all the problem solving that we did, especially with this distinction between the sentences and the paragraphs, analyzing these books, analyzing the metadata, the counting, the delimiting, all of these things. If you got that done in 2 business days, that's outstanding. It's better than respectable. It's outstanding. So when we total up the amount of time that it's taking to actually get the work done, clearly AI is an incredibly powerful tool that moves things along really quickly. But as a live stream, where I'm attempting to entertain you and give you a reason to click on this video and sit and watch me. I think the real power of this YouTube channel is not people watching me prompt codecs. It's people watching me write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The I am especially pleased when I get comments like, "Wow, I can't write code. I can't write CSS without asking for help or needing to ask AI or looking something up." And here you meaning me, I can just do it from memory. That's a powerful thing. People like to watch that, and I kind of think we need to get back to that. So, um, after today, can I just be honest and tell you, I don't really want to work on this today, but I don't really have anything else planned. I kind of just decided this morning I didn't want to do this anymore today. I'm tired and cranky and I want to do something interesting. Um, but I haven't completely changed our agenda yet today either. So, I guess we should just work on the API because I have nothing else planned. But after today, I will be here on Tuesday this week. It is going to be more AI content, but it's going to be a little more structured. We are actually going to be auditing past projects that I've built on this channel. So I do think it's going to be slightly more interesting. And then I'm going to go live on LinkedIn on Thursday and sort of like present this workflow. It won't be as dense as the last 2 weekends have been. It'll be a little more surface level, a little lighter, a little more a DIY, if you will, because I think there are so many new people building websites now that don't obviously have the experience of a full-fledged developer, software engineer, right? But are dabbling and playing with these tools and they want tips and tricks and guidance on how they could work on their own personal projects and really start to dip their toes in development. So it's going to be a little lighter than the dense back end systems design type stuff we've been doing the last 2 weekends. So I am genuinely looking forward to Tuesday and Thursday this week. And then starting next weekend, I don't know if I'm going to go live on Friday or not. Honestly, it just depends on how my week goes because I have 5 million things that I'm trying to accomplish every week and not enough time in the day. So we'll see how Tuesday and Thursday go. I may or may not be here next weekend on Friday, but for sure Saturday and Sunday, we're going to start to work on something else. Let me see if I can at least find this thing that I came across. I didn't set it aside. Let me see if I can find it though, because I was like, oh, I built that. I built that. It's another design that I think this is it. Another design that I built like 10 years ago. Where is it? No. And I was like, dang it, Angela. Oh, it. Okay. Oh boy, hang on. Let me get this. Let me get this ready. And I don't have the original. No, this is a photo. This is Photoshop. Okay. So, many years ago, if you don't know, there is a huge WordPress market on Etsy. So 10 years ago, there was this thing called Genesis. And if you don't know about WordPress, WordPress has this, the structure of WordPress is that it's theme based. So you have WordPress core and then you install themes to work together with the core code base. WordPress has something else called child themes. So you have a parent and a child theme. And anytime you're working with a parent theme, you can customize the parent theme without touching the code. And what you do is you install something called a child theme. And really the child theme just gets like priority over anything that renders in the parent theme, right? And there were frameworks that popped up, and the one that was really big 10 years ago was called Genesis. And it was literally just a WordPress parent theme, and you could build Genesis themes that were really child themes. You built them on top of the parent theme. And it was like a whole big thing. And it was wildly popular on Etsy. And I tried for many years to sort of enter that marketplace. And how I discovered it is that I've been on and off of Etsy for years. I've sold lots of different things, digital products, physical products, never quite got anything to stick. But I had friends on Etsy, and I had a fair number of clients who found me on Etsy. And one of the things that I would do is somebody would go out and buy a Genesis child theme because it was always marketed as being very DIY friendly, but you really did still have to have a fair amount of technical expertise to install WordPress, install a framework, and then install a child theme, and then set up all of your content, your images, and configure your content. So I would basically sell web design WordPress services on my Etsy shop, like, hey, do you have a Genesis theme or website, or do you have a WordPress website that you need help with? Because I was a WordPress developer, and for like $100, I would set it up for you and help you get everything set up. So that's how I learned about Genesis, and how I learned that the Genesis marketplace was so big. And I was like, okay. And at this point in my career, I was an experienced WordPress developer. I had been building custom WordPress themes and doing client work and agency work for several years at this point. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to start building child themes for Genesis. But here's the thing, I was new in my career. I was very early in my career. I mean, I was like 14, 15, 16, 17, and then I got my job at St. Thomas in 2018. I was less than 4 years into my career. So even though I had a lot of technical expertise, what I was lacking then that I have now is engineering expertise. What is engineering expertise? It's when you know when to say when. It's when you know when to let go of perfection. It's when you know how to balance requirements. It's when you know how to have conversations with clients and leadership teams. It's when you know how to decide what is important and absolutely cannot be shipped without a particular implementation, and what can wait. That's what real engineering is. It's judgment. That's really what it is. I understand that now, 13 years into my career. I didn't get that then. So I started building themes. I built a couple, and I was like writing documentation and setting up theme options and trying to sell these things. And I was like, no, this doesn't work. It doesn't work. This isn't going to work for the widest possible audience, and people aren't going to understand this. And I have to include this, and it can't ship without that. And then meanwhile, people were hiring me to build, like, set up their sites and themes that they had bought. And the themes were not even close to being perfect. In fact, they were wildly imperfect. They didn't have options that I thought that they should have had. They didn't have features I thought they should have had. There were things that people were overlooking that I thought should have been included. But my clients didn't care. They were like, oh, it's so cute. Can you put this picture here, here, and here, and then show me how to write a blog post? And beyond that, they didn't care. So I could just like never get off the ground because I was so attached to like this weird perfect idea of what had to be included or couldn't be left out. And I've learned to let go of a lot of that stuff now. I mean, I'm still a little bit of a perfectionist, but I'm also very much like, V2, we don't need to do this now. V2, not that important. I've learned to let go of a lot of things, and that's engineering judgment. So I'm kind of like taking a second look at WordPress, and it's been 10 years I've been away from it. I'm like, maybe I should revisit some of how WordPress is structured, some of what they've done over the last 10 years, check to see what people are doing. And Etsy is still a big darn deal for selling WordPress themes for a lot of digital products. And I'm like, maybe now's the time to think about doing that again. So one of the things I was researching this morning is WordPress still really heavily reliant on jQuery? Because 10 years ago, I could write a few lines of jQuery. I couldn't write any vanilla JavaScript to save my life. And I did not understand object-oriented programming. I mean, there are just so, this is the other thing. I am a better developer now than I was 10 years ago, hands down. I understand so much more about object-oriented programming and structure and just everything related to development. And just, of course, if you're 13 years into your career, you should be better now than you were 10 years ago. So that hopefully goes without saying. Maybe now is a good time to start revisiting some of these ideas that I had 10 years ago and I just couldn't quite execute. Because I am older, smarter, wiser. I've learned to let go of a lot of things. I've learned that perfect is not a deal breaker anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having lots of thoughts. So I'm also I have to keep AI as a part of this conversation as well. I also have a tool now to help me review code, not write code for me. So again, this is where I balance my personal and my professional, because if I decide to do any of these things again, these are personal endeavors. They may turn into businesses, but they're personal endeavors. And I very much want to be hands-on with the code. So, but think about the tools that we have now, the confidence, the confidence that I would have, the experience I have, the expertise I have now, where I could use these tools for code reviews and just feel so much more confident about what it was that I was selling in terms of like security and best practices and adhering to WordPress best practices, right? I don't know. I just have lots of thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. So, my other point is I was researching this morning, and by researching, I asked ChatGPT, does WordPress still really rely on jQuery? Because back in the day, I could write 1 or 2 lines of jQuery, couldn't write vanilla JavaScript to save my life. That has obviously changed. And WordPress core does still initialize jQuery, but it doesn't need to be initialized in any of the themes. So we could go down this road together, you and me. We could go down this road together. We could build a couple of WordPress themes, see how it goes, use Codex to review our code and make sure that we're adhering to best practices, keeping things secure. We're not, producing a bunch of crap. And we could still have that top front end layer be HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We don't need to initialize jQuery or write any jQuery. We can write all vanilla CSS. And of course, there's good semantic accessible HTML. I think this is going to happen. So I was just looking through some of my old files last week or the week before, and I came across this. I vaguely remember making this. Like, I do kind of remember making it, but I also don't really, like, it looks familiar. Clearly, I made this. And this was going to be my attempt at building a Genesis child theme. And look at this theme. Look at this thing. Hello, look at, it's Jane Austen. I didn't plan this. I swear I didn't plan this. Jane Austen themed, clearly. If you needed any proof that I love Jane Austen. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Should we build a WordPress theme? Look at my little click to load video here. Oh, darn it. Facebook, Theme Honey on Facebook. This would obviously be Instagram. We need to set up 2017 right here. Here's when it was. So 9 years ago, I made this. Let's make this. Let's make this into a WordPress theme. What do you guys think? Let me see here. Malik says, agreed. I have been feeling like it is mind-numbing doing just design work. Wix lets you add JavaScript pages, and I have been having fun adding in JavaScript for a filter bar. Nice. So are you doing Wix for your internship, or is that just sort of a side thing that you decided to start learning? And then Asan is here and says, hi, is other website tutorial. Are you asking me if this is a website tutorial? Yeah. loosely. Loosely, this is a website. I don't know what this is today, honestly. I think we should build this. I completely forgot that this even existed, and I think we should build this. Yeah. I also think, because I do have several WordPress themes that I've built, like we could go back and I could show you guys how to install WordPress. That we could definitely do that in a stream. We could come up with, I mean, we could work with Codex and develop a set of prompts for how do you audit a WordPress website? How do you check for security bugs or make improvements to the code? If it's like maybe it was written for an old version of PHP. I mean, we could do a bunch of that stuff, and I think it would be fun. It would expand the audience of the channel a little bit. It doesn't compromise my vanilla philosophy. And I think it's just maybe a smart direction to start moving in. Because how many more vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript landing pages should we make before that starts to get a little bit old and tiresome? I'm not saying that it's going to, I'm just saying the potential exists. So, and Malik is saying, yes, I agree. Fresh eyes, improved brain could be fun to do. I agree. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trying, right? People are either going to watch or not watch. Oh, and Malik says it's second internship. You're using Wix. Um, Well, anyways, what do we think of this? Listen, guys, this is the Etsy aesthetic, okay? Let's see here. Jackie is asking if I will teach you how to write React. Unfortunately, no. I cannot teach something that I don't know how to do, but I am starting to learn React. Just FYI, I am starting to learn React. So I don't know. I think that's going to be members only content once I get my shit together and actually record something related to that. And Monique Robinson is here and says, hello, greetings to all. Okay. Welcome, Monique. Thanks for coming to hang out. So I think that we're going to start to build this next weekend. My process for building WordPress websites was that I always wrote all of the code first because I wanted people, well, really, it was the way that I was taught to do it, that you take your completed HTML, CSS, and whatever JavaScript functionality you have, and you turn that into a theme. I know people have different approaches. I met many a developer who started with a blank WordPress theme and they built their styles on top of that structure. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Because I did client work and I made custom WordPress websites for my clients, I always did the HTML and the CSS and the JavaScript first because I was building in very custom functionality to the back end, usually custom post types, custom taxonomies, things like that. But if we're going to take a generic approach to this, there may not be anything wrong with taking like a blank default sort of structural theme and building on top of it. So I don't know. I'll do a little research this week, and by research I mean that I will ask ChatGPT its opinion on the best approach, and then I think that we should maybe work on a WordPress theme starting next weekend. And here's the thing. Regardless of the approach that we take, well, assuming we take the approach of styles and structure done, which, hello, I have always said I wanted what I build on this channel and put out into the ether as open source work. I wanted that to be available to the widest audience possible. So if you were a WordPress developer, a React developer, an Angular developer, you could take my little HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and turn it into anything you want. That was always the point of that. I have always said that that's why I liked doing that. And that was always why I pushed back on people who thought that I should be doing more dynamic content. Because, in my opinion, loading content dynamically from an API or a JSON file doesn't do you any good if you're a WordPress developer, because you are going to be querying your database with PHP to get all that stuff. So why would a template with a bunch of dynamic JavaScript from an API be of any use to you? That's the reason I did that. So maybe the approach that we should take is that we could take one of the past builds that we did on this channel and turn it into a WordPress theme. There's that too. I mean, there's a lot of directions we could go here with this. So there's that. Okay. While we're at it, would you be so kind as to like this video, subscribe if you're new here? I would appreciate it. I'm here every Saturday and Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We do vanilla here, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I really don't do libraries and frameworks on this channel. So generally no React, Angular, Vue, Tailwind, Bootstrap, Foundation. I really put a lot of emphasis on the basics, the three things that the browser renders natively, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I will never tell you that you don't need to know frameworks and libraries in order to become a working developer. I just want to emphasize the basics. And what is also occurring to me is that we can still have that vanilla layer on top of a WordPress theme, on top of a full stack app. We can still learn to use these tools to build these things and to help us build these things and still keep it vanilla. So I think that's the direction that the channel is going in. So I like it. And it says this is hang on, I'm looking at my files. So this is a PSD, but I don't know if this is layered or not. Let's check. Let's check. Hmm. Oh, look at this. Hang on. Okay, hang on. Dang it. Why didn't I look back at some of the things I was doing 10 years ago and I'm just like, Angela, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you follow through on this? Why didn't you do this? 10 years later, could have been an Etsy millionaire. Okay. I don't think that this is layered. I mean, I'm just seeing here. Yeah, I'm just seeing here, like literally. Here's another one. It's not sized correctly. But this is not layered. This is just like a PNG. But, God dang it. Why didn't I save the layered Photoshop document for this? Tell me why. Okay, hang on. I have some other photos. I have inner pages. We've got more pages here. Okay, so here's the home page. Here's a product page because I built everything to be supported by WooCommerce. What is wrong with me? What? Look at all the work that I did here. Why didn't I? Why didn't I actually finish this? Here's a product page. There's something wrong with me. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I finish this? June 2017. What was going on? I mean, okay, let's get a little, should we do a little YouTube therapy? June 2017. Well, I got the job at St. Thomas in February 2018. And I've always said that I stayed self-employed like a full year longer than I should have. And I feel like in the summer of 2017, I was kind of emotionally at the end of my rope in terms of being self-employed, just in terms of like being exhausted, the grind of finding clients, which is I think why I was trying to do this. I was like digital products, I maybe wouldn't have to work as hard. And I think I was just like um I was building these things, and like I said, I didn't have the engineering judgment that I have now to like let go of the perfectionism. And I felt completely overwhelmed by building these things and then just releasing them out into the public for people to go buy, because I also felt like I spent a lot of time supporting my clients because I was building custom WordPress websites for them. And there is so much support that goes into that when you have clients, teaching them how to use the site, being available if something breaks, helping them if they have questions. I mean, you don't just build a site and launch it and then it ends. It's like that's when the work begins, because now they need to learn how to use it. They need to maintain it. You need to be available to help them. And of course, they have to pay for that. But I just learned how much work it was to like really support people after I built them something. So I was trying so hard to make these themes perfect and well documented and safe and secure and easy to understand. And it was overwhelming based on the experience I was having supporting my clients, thinking about how I would support a community of people buying these things. I'm over that now. I'm here to tell you I don't worry about stuff like that anymore. Or I wouldn't I just don't. I can tell you now that it would be easy for me to let go of some of that. And it's very difficult to look back at things like this and say to myself, like, oh my God, look how much work I did. So much work. And I never like got it off the ground or launched it or did anything with it. And that's hard. It's just hard to look at. It's hard to look at. So, yeah. Anyways, I don't know how I feel right now. So, maybe we shouldn't have looked at this. Maybe we shouldn't have looked at this. I don't know. It's okay though. It's okay. Onward and upward, right? Okay. I don't have the layered Photoshop files for this design, but clearly we have screenshots for inner pages. And you know me, I rarely look at the layered part of things anyways. So I think we should I think we should build this. I think we have enough here to build this. Let's reacquaint ourselves with WordPress, and we can still have that vanilla layer on top, can't we? All right, well, that was a digression. I kind of needed it though because I don't know. I'm I just didn't want to immediately jump back into Jane Austen, but we're going to finish this API today. Because what else are we going to do, right? Let's get everything up and ready to go. It's hard once you reach a certain age to, I think everybody does it. You reach a certain age and you just naturally find yourself reflecting on things. And you're like, why didn't I do that? Look at all the work that I put into it. Why didn't I finish that? Okay, let's get Codex up and running. So there's that. Okay. Here. Is this where we were doing this? Why was I 22 hours ago? What's going on here? 19 hours ago. Where were we doing this? We should have been doing this here, right? Let's check and see. Yeah, this looks right. I think this is where we were. What is this? What is this? Oh, this is this is my transcript from yesterday. That's what that is. Got it. Okay. Got it. And how are we doing on usage? Why does it say 100%? Did they change how they do this? Because it used to be like you are at certain percentage for the next 5 hours. I don't know. I'm confused. Okay. Everything's been committed. Let's get our coding partner, ChatGPT. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Everything is up to date. The repo is ready. What should we do next? Okay. The next step is definitely prompt 5, design the API contract before implementing routes. The requirements explicitly say the API contract and realistic JSON fixtures should be completed before the final front end, but I'm glad I checked the repo before telling you to run the existing prompt 5 because the current API contract is stale. Yeah, it's left over from the last project. It still contains transcript database language like YouTube URLs, timestamps, matching transcript chunk. That prompt should not go to codecs. For Jane Austen, prompt 5 needs to define the contract for at least search and metadata. And the contract needs to settle things like the search query parameters, keyword versus exact phrase, book, character, location, and behavior for multi-keyword search. One result equals one matching paragraph. The result shape for book, chapter, paragraph, identity, and ordinals. Enough location data for the front end to open the exact paragraph in the e-reader. Metadata response shapes for books, characters, locations, and dependent dropdowns. Validation, error shapes, no result behavior, realistic JSON fixtures the front end can later build against. The requirements already give us most of the semantics. A text query is mandatory. Filters are optional. Character location matching uses canonical name plus aliases. Dropdown changes can narrow metadata options but do not execute a paragraph search. I would replace the existing prompt 5 entirely rather than trying to patch that old placeholder. One other thing I'd like us to decide while writing it. I think the API contract should include the reader destination now, even though we haven't built the reader yet. For example, a result could carry something structurally stable, such as, so here's an object, and then we have a book object, a chapter object, a paragraph object. So the book ID, Pride and Prejudice, title, Pride and Prejudice, chapter 34, number 34, title, chapter 34, but we know Pride and Prejudice is like chapter XXXIV is 34, right? Paragraph ID, ordinal in chapter, or okay. Then later the front end can construct or use the reader route consistently without redesigning search JSON. So my recommendation is, so this would basically call the chapter. So the chapter wouldn't be in the JSON, it would just, okay. Then later, the front end can construct or use the reader route consistently without us redesigning search JSON. So my recommendation is, next job, replace the API contract with a proper Jane Austen API contract design prompt, no route implementation yet. And yes, I can write that full replacement prompt next. Okay, I understand like 80% of what it just said. So let's do it. Great. Please. Oops. Great. Please write prompt 5. Okay. Here we have another formatting. Okay, I actually do want to read this a little bit. Objective, design the backend JSON API contract before implementing any routes. The database importer work is complete and validated. The application must support paragraph level keyword or exact phrase search with optional book, character, and location filters. Metadata needed to populate and narrow front-end dropdowns. Enough stable book, chapter, paragraph identity in search results for the front end to open the corresponding paragraph in the e-reader later. Do not implement routes in this job. The deliverable should define a front-end ready API contract and realistic JSON fixtures that future front-end and back-end work can use as an agreed interface. Read before designing. Okay. Inspect the current database schema and representative imported records as needed. The current published database contains 6 books, 269 chapters, 10,011 paragraph rows, paragraph level FTS5 search, characters and character aliases, locations and location aliases. Do not redesign the database in this job. Scope. Design the contract for API search or API metadata. Do not implement either route. Do not add unrelated endpoints unless the existing requirements make an additional endpoint strictly necessary. If you believe another endpoint will be needed later, document it as a future consideration rather than adding it to this contract automatically. Core contract principles. The API must return front-end ready JSON. The front end must not need to inspect SQLite rows directly, understand database table structure, derive book file system paths, join related database records itself, infer chapter identity from paragraph IDs, calculate paragraph ordinals, reconstruct canonical character location names, know character location alias lists in order to display filter options. The API should expose stable application concepts, not raw implementation details. Search semantics. A search requires a text query. Drop-down selections alone do not execute paragraph search. Search operates on paragraph chunks. One search result represents exactly one matching paragraph. If 5 paragraphs from one book match, the API returns 5 results, which means we might be doing the thing that we did last time where we have a chapter and multiple paragraphs matching that chapter, right? Do not aggregate matches by book or chapter. Honestly, though, could we get the API to do this for us? Would that be so bad if we had the API do it for us and then we didn't have to do it? The front end may later group or sort results, but the API preserves paragraph level granularity. Search modes. The contract must support keyword search and exact phrase search. Define how the request distinguishes those modes. Use an explicit parameter rather than requiring the server to infer intent from quotation marks. For example, the contract may use a shape such as query equals friendship or mode equals keyword. Or query equals truth universally acknowledged, mode equals phrase. So this is the exact phrase. This is the keyword. Got it? Okay. You may recommend better names if appropriate, but document them clearly. Multi-token keyword policy. The approved keyword policy is and, which means we narrow, we don't broaden, right? For a keyword query containing multiple terms, all terms must match the paragraph under the FTS behavior selected for version 1. Example, query Elizabeth Darcy, mode keyword, must require both terms. Do not silently switch to or behavior. Optional filters. Search may also accept book character location. Filters are optional. When present, all selected filters are combined with the required text query. Conceptually, text query and selected book and selected character and selected location. Document exact query parameter names. Prefer stable IDs and slugs rather than display labels for filter values. For example, book equals Pride and Prejudice, character equals Elizabeth Bennet, location equals Pemberley. Do not require the front end to submit canonical display names if stable IDs already exist. When present, all selected filters are combined with the required text query. Okay. Character filter semantics. A selected character must operate at the paragraph level. A paragraph matches the selected character if it contains the character's canonical name or one of the approved aliases configured for that character. The API request should identify the character by a stable entity ID. The front end must not send alias lists. Ambiguous aliases remain subject to the existing metadata model and documented version 1 behavior. Do not redesign entity linking semantics in this job. Location filter semantics. A selected location filter must operate at the paragraph level. A paragraph matches the selected location if its text contains the location's canonical name or one of the approved aliases configured for that location. The API request should identify the location by stable entity ID. The front end must not send alias lists. A selected location filter must operate at the paragraph level. Okay. Book filter semantics. A selected book filter limits results to that book. Use the stable book slug ID. Search request contract defined the endpoint, the HTTP method, query parameters, required parameters, optional parameters, allowed enum values, validation rules, normalization behavior, empty value behavior, unknown ID behavior. At minimum, settle the query, the mode, the book, the character, the location. Do not add pagination unless you determine that the version 1 requirements clearly need it now. If pagination is not being designed yet, explicitly say so. If you believe a result limit is necessary for safety or usability even before pagination, document the proposed behavior and rationale rather than assuming one. Search response contract. Hang on, I'm just curious. How much longer is this? Oh my God. Okay. I do find this genuinely interesting, but I'm questioning if we should read this. So maybe let's search response contract. Let's try to hit the highlights. Design a stable top-level response object. Individual search result shape. Okay, so an example of how it should look. Reader destination. The API contract should expose enough stable data for a future front-end reader route. See, I want this to be book though, but for example, if the eventual front-end route might look some conceptually like read, Pride and Prejudice, chapter, paragraph. I don't think we have to decide that now. Okay, good. Do not commit the project to a specific final URL syntax unless existing architecture documentation has already done so. Paragraph text and highlighting. Return the full normalized paragraph text in search results. Search highlighting remains a front-end responsibility. Do not return HTML with mark tags. Okay. Search ordering. Define the default backend ordering. This is the relevance score again, which in my opinion is not useful, but a valid no results response. Okay. Search validation errors. Okay. Metadata endpoint purpose. Okay. Metadata filtering behavior. Metadata response shape. Okay. Metadata aliases. Metadata validation errors. HTTP status semantics, JSON naming conventions, null versus omitted fields. So we're covering a lot of territory here. Fixtures, create realistic JSON fixtures for front-end development. Contract documentation, okay. Here's the deliverable for the contract. Contract tests and fixture validation. Do not implement route tests because routes do not exist yet. Existing placeholder prompt. Okay. Constraints. Final response. Done when. Okay. Whew. It's a lot. We need that. And I don't see any errors over here on the right in the mini map. Okay, so let's go ahead and commit this, and we'll confirm that ChatGPT can see this on the repo, and then we'll go ahead and prompt codex. Prompt 5 for the API contract. Okay. Okay. I just updated and pushed prompt 5. Please confirm it's correct, and I'll send it to Codex. I guess this is the future of development now, huh? Okay. We got the go ahead. So let's copy the relative path, and please read and follow the instructions in this file. San says nice design. So I think you were probably looking at my 2017 WordPress theme. Malik says hindsight is 2020. Life may have gotten in the way. Very nice designs. Yeah, WooCommerce. I've made a couple of WooCommerce sites for clients. It's very easy to work with. Um, TIKMS is here. Super Cool is also here. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Glad to have you. Okay. I mean, how long is it going to be before we don't need a human to facilitate a conversation between the chatbot and the agent, right? Any predictions? what is the purpose? What is the point of building your own agent? Like, if we've got, I know that there are different agents out there. Okay. So you sign up for ChatGPT, you download the app, you got an agent. What is the point of building your own agent? Unless it's an agent that does something very, very specific. I don't know. Maybe I just need to learn more about, I think I need a deeper understanding of what agents are. Because I guess I thought that we use the term agent to talk about a very specific task, and that Codex was like an app that performed tasks. But clearly, this is considered an agent, but it doesn't do one thing until you tell it to do something. So I don't know. I'm just confused by like the vernacular, the labels, the what exactly things do. I feel like we're borrowing terms and calling things to describe them, but that's not exactly what they do. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm going to try to figure it all out. I just give me a list of definitions. How's that? Can we start with that? Should we start with that? Maybe we should. Is that a question for ChatGPT? um, Here, we'll start a new conversation with ChatGPT. So we have both going. Can you explain the difference between an AI agent and an app like Codex? I thought an agent performed a specific task or set of tasks. I thought Codex was an app that performed tasks. Why would anyone, if Codex is also considered an agent, why would anyone build their own agent? I think we're using the same terminology for different things, and it's making it hard to understand. I need a list of definitions. Okay. Okay. Yeah, the terminology is overloaded. That's a good way to put it. Let's see here. An agent is currently being used at several different levels of abstraction. Your original understanding wasn't wrong. Here's the vocabulary I'd use so the pieces stop blurring together. Term, model, the AI engine that reasons or generates. By itself, it doesn't necessarily have access to files, terminals, databases, etc. So an example would be GPT 5.6. Tool, A capability the model can invoke to do something outside pure text generation, like run a shell command, search GitHub, query a database, send an email. Okay, agent. A model plus instructions, tools, and some ability to decide what actions to take to accomplish a goal. Inspect this repo, find why the tests fail, fix the code, run the tests again. Okay, this is what I thought an agent was. Workflow. Agentic workflow. A defined sequence or process for accomplishing something. It may use an agent, ordinary code, or several agents. Import data, validate, run tests, generate report. Okay, so let's go back to agent. A model plus instructions, tools, and some ability to decide what actions to take to accomplish a goal. Inspect this repo, find why the tests fail, fix the code, run the tests again. Okay. Agentic workflow. A workflow where the AI gets discretion over some of the intermediate steps instead of every step being hard-coded. Audit this import and fix anything wrong, rather than manually specifying every command. Okay, I feel like this is what I've done a few times now, and it's been great. With some instructions, but mostly it's this. Okay. Specialized agent. An agent deliberately constrained to a particular job or domain with specific instructions and tools. Accessibility audit agent. Support ticket agent. Invoice processing agent. General, so there's different types of agents. That's, I think, what the takeaway is here. General purpose agent. An agent with a broad tool set that can handle many kinds of tasks. So that's Codex. An app or a product, the software interface or environment through which you interact with models and agents, so like ChatGPT or the Codex app. Agent framework or SDK, developer infrastructure for building your own agents and agent workflows. OpenAI Agents SDK. Okay. So OpenAI itself currently defines agents roughly as systems that can plan, call tools, maintain enough state, and complete multi-step work, and more simply as systems that independently accomplish tasks on your behalf. So what exactly is Codex? This is where the language gets confusing. Codex is both a product and an agentic system. The Codex app is the application interface. Inside it, Codex coding agents perform work. OpenAI literally describes the Codex app as a place for multitasking with agents where separate agents can work in separate threads. And OpenAI describes Codex itself as a coding agent that can complete things like features, refactors, migrations, code reviews, and pull requests. A useful mental model is, we've got the Codex app, which is the interface, got it, the UI. Then inside the app, we've got the agent. So we've got different models, we give it instructions, there's a terminal, a file system, Git, and other tools. Got it. So the agent would be like a project, right? So would the agent be like the project? So when you've been giving Codex prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3, you're essentially giving a general software engineering agent a specific job to perform. But then why would you ever build your own agent? Because Codex's job is essentially be a very capable software engineering agent. Your own agent might have a much narrower job. Process one particular business workflow exactly the way Angela wants it done. Suppose you build an accessibility review agent. You could give it permanent instructions like you are an accessibility QA agent. For every web page, inspect semantic HTML, test heading hierarchy, check labels, inspect keyboard interaction, identify WCAG violations, classify severity, produce a standard report, never modify production code, and give it only these tools: the browser, HTML inspector, Axe, repository, read access, report generator. Now somebody can give it audit this URL, and that's basically the entire input. The user doesn't need to write the giant prompt every time. This is the important distinction. An agent isn't defined by having only one task. It's defined more by agency. Normal automation is steps 1, 2, 3, 4. Agent has a goal. AI decides, what information do I need? What tool should I use? What should I do next? Did it work? Do I need another step? Results. That can be extremely broad, like Codex, or extremely narrow, like an accessibility auditor. There's another term you'll hear, agentic. This one is useful. Something can be agentic without necessarily being packaged as an agent. For example, look through these 30 files, determine which ones need modification, edit them, run the test suite, diagnose failures, fix them, and give me a report. That's agentic behavior because the AI is making decisions about intermediate actions. Compare change line 72 of server.js from X to Y. That mostly isn't agentic, it's a direct instruction. And there's one more distinction I think will help you: agent versus assistant. An assistant generally operates like you, a request, AI, response, you, next request. An agent can operate more like you, goal. And then the AI does the action, observe the result, reason action, observe result, blah, 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 finished result. The boundary isn't perfectly clean anymore because products like ChatGPT have become increasingly agentic themselves. So your original idea about building an agent still makes complete sense. You weren't imagining, I want to build my own version of Codex. You were imagining, I want to build a specialized agent. I want to build a specialized AI system that knows how to perform a particular workflow. That's exactly a legitimate use of agents, and Codex can actually help you build that agent, which produces the slightly ridiculous but accurate sentence: you can use an agent to build an agent. The terminology I'd personally stick with in our conversations is model, tools, agent, workflow, app. And when we say your agent, I would assume we mean a specialized agent you build for defined purpose, not Codex itself. That distinction will keep us sane. So do we feel like we have more clarity or less? I have a little more clarity. Okay. This helps. It does. So in this screenshot of Codex are my projects agents. No, your projects are not agents. That screenshot actually gives us a nice way to separate the concepts. OpenAI describes the Codex app as organizing agent threads by project. Agents run in separate threads organized by projects. So in your screenshot, Codex equals the app product you're using. Jane Austen equals a project. Think of it as the workspace associated with that repo or code base. Read backend job instructions equals a thread or a task inside that project. When you gave Codex the instructions in that thread, a Codex agent did the work. Read files, reasoned about them, created or edited files, ran commands, tests, etc. YouTube database, practice layouts, content agent equals other projects, workspaces, not separate agents. A good representation of your actual screen is, hang on 1 second. A good representation of your actual screen is Codex app, project, thread. And there's an interesting wrinkle. Codex can run multiple agents. The app is specifically designed for parallel agent work. And Codex can even spawn sub-agents for work that benefits from parallelization. Parallelization. So you could theoretically have Jane Austen project, agent thread, build the API, agent thread, build the front end, agent thread, write tests running separately. Man, you would burn through tokens doing that. My $20 a month plan is not going to support parallelization, I don't think. The distinction I'd lock into your vocabulary. I think this is the cleanest glossary for what you're doing. App, the software interface, Codex. Project, a workspace repository like Jane Austen. Thread, one conversation or job within that project. Task, the goal you give Codex inside a thread. Agent, the AI worker that figures out and executes the steps. Sub-agent, another AI worker spawned to handle part of the work. Tool, something the agent can use, the terminal, the file system, Git, etc. Skill, reusable instructions or capabilities that teach Codex how to perform certain kinds of work. Workflow, the larger process connecting tasks together. One subtle correction to my previous answer is important. Don't visualize an agent as a folder-like thing sitting permanently in that sidebar. That's probably contributing to the confusion. Agreed. An agent is much closer to the worker executing the job. Your project is in the workspace. Your thread is the job assignment. Your prompt is the work order. Codex provides the worker. And that also gets us much closer to answering the bigger question you were asking. If Codex already provides an agent, what on earth would I be building when I say I want to build my own agent? There's a very concrete answer to that, and I think that's the next distinction worth making. Okay. Um, I like this conversation because I am trying to sort it all out. Am I the only one? Um, am I the only one trying to sort all this out and figure all this out? It's interesting. I want to understand it. I want to get the terminology right. So, okay, so this is done. Let's go ahead and commit this. And then we will have ChatGPT check it, check the results. Prompt 5 results from Codex. All right. Okay. Prompt 5 is finished and pushed to the repo. Here's the Codex response. Okay. Prompt 5 looks successful. I reviewed the pushed API contract, including the search semantics, metadata behavior, reader identity, fixture inventory, and the open questions section. It is internally consistent and matches the requirements we established. A few decisions Codex made are especially solid. Character and location IDs are exposed as opaque compound IDs, which is the right choice because their source IDs are book scoped rather than globally unique. Search is explicit. Query plus required mode with keyword using and phrase using FTS phrase semantics. Man, I have a frog in my throat today. Okay. Search results return complete paragraph text plus independent book chapter paragraph identity and both paragraph ordinals, so the future reader won't need to parse IDs. Metadata narrowing is clean. So an endpoint API metadata for everything, question mark, book equals Emma for dependent dropdowns. Aliases correctly stay backend only. The future issues are appropriately documented as future considerations rather than unresolved blockers. I also like the no pagination decision for version 1 with a fixed corpus of 10,011 paragraphs returning all matches is a reasonable contract for now, and it avoids designing pagination before we have evidence we need it. So I'd call prompt 5 complete with no corrections needed. The next step is prompt 6, implement the API against this contract. That should be a real implementation job now. Build the get request endpoints, match the fixtures exactly, add route tests, and leave the front end alone. Oh boy. Okay, let's do it. Please write prompt 6. Thanks. I checked the existing prompt 6 placeholder plus the current server scaffold. The placeholder is too thin now. We should replace it with a full implementation prompt that binds codecs tightly to the contract and the current Express SQLite setup. The server is still essentially a static file scaffold with app.locals.database available for routes, which is a good base. And again, we have some formatting issues here, which is fine. We're getting used to that. Okay, so since this is an implementation and we spent a lot of time reading the contract, let's just go ahead and do the implementation. Holy cow. Okay, let's do it. Let's just get this show on the road. All right, let's commit this. I will say our workflow is working well. I'm glad. So I am grateful, even though it's a little mind-numbing to be the interface between the chat and the agent, the app, whatever you want to call it. At least we found a system that works. Prompt 6 to build the API. Git push origin main. Okay. Prompt 6 is up to date and pushed to the repo. Please confirm, and I'll give this to Codex. And I maybe don't need to do this step, but I like that I commit it, push it to the repo, and it can actually see it there, and then we can go ahead and give it to Codex. So I like this. Okay. So let's copy the path. Please read and follow the instructions in this file. Okay, so while this is working, what else should we talk about? What else should we Google? Or do we need to Google? Do you have anything on your list of things to Google that you would like me to Google for you? Or we can go back to this and continue this conversation because it does sort of say here, and that also gets us much closer to answering the bigger question you are asking. If Codex already provides an agent, what on earth would I be building when I say I want to build my own agent? There's a very concrete answer to that, and I think that's the next distinction worth making. Okay, great. Please make that distinction for me. Okay. So the cleanest distinction is Codex is an agent you use. An agent you build is software you design around a specific job. Those sound almost identical until you look at who controls the behavior, the interface, the tools, and the workflow. Right now, when you use Codex, you are doing something like this. There's me. Then there's the app. Then there's the coding agent. Then there's my repository. It reads files, writes code, runs commands, runs tests, reports back. Codex already supplies the agent, runtime, interface, coding tools, permissions, system, threads, project organization, etc. OpenAI describes Codex as a coding agent designed to complete engineering tasks end to end. You provide the goal. Read these job instructions and implement the back end. Codex figures out how to do it. Which I think just this right here, what it's saying, perfectly describes what I see happening. I'm just going to use social media as an example because I feel like I'm just seeing what other people are doing via Instagram Reels. So many people are posting their experiences on Reels, and I think this is like the what we currently call vibe coding, because you can go to Codex, you can go to Claude Code and say, build me a website and just tell it what the goal is. And then you let the agent make all those decisions. And of course, then we see, we'll call it the consequences of that, because it's somebody who doesn't know any better or know what to ask for. Whereas there's me and there's you watching this and us doing this together. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, who can do this? Because look at all this requirements gathering that we have to do. Well, yeah, that's because we have experience and they don't. They don't even know what requirements gathering is for the purposes of providing the goal. They don't know because they're not engineers. We are, right? Does that make sense? Okay. When you build your own agent, you're building the thing someone else gives a goal to. For example, imagine you eventually create this, an accessibility auditor. A user gives it example.com. Your agent then receives the URL, loads the website, inspects the HTML. Gosh darn it. Hang on one second. The allergies are wild today. Okay. So your agent then receives the URL, loads the website, inspects the HTML, runs automated accessibility checks, inspects headings, forms, landmarks, reason about findings, categorize WCAG issues, generate report. The user doesn't know or care that there might be GPT underneath it. they experience Angela's accessibility auditor. That's the product. And you decide what agency it has. Yeah, because if I was to build something like this, I would be very specific about what it checks or the behavior that I think it should have based on my experience, right? You decide what instructions it always receives, what model it uses, what tools it can access, what data it can access, what actions it is allowed to perform, what it should never do, what information it remembers, what output format it produces, whether it requires human approval, what UI sits in front of it. That's fundamentally different from opening Codex and typing prompts into a thread. Here's where Codex fits into building one. This is the part that makes the relationship click. You build my accessibility agent, Codex, writes the application, builds the API, writes the agent logic, builds the front end, writes tests. Your agent, auditexample.com, your user. Codex is your developer. Your agent is the software being developed. You could absolutely use Codex to write nearly the entire code base for your agent. That doesn't make your application Codex. It's no different conceptually from using VS Code to build a WordPress theme. VS Code isn't the theme. And your own agent doesn't necessarily have to be a coding agent. That's another major distinction. Codex's domain is essentially software engineering. Your agent's domain could be anything. For example, content agent. Input a YouTube transcript. Agent finds strong moments, identifies potential shorts, scores clips, suggests titles, extracts timestamps, categorizes topics, writes metadata. Output structured clip recommendations. That's very different from Codex. Or Jane Austen research agent. Input, where does Elizabeth's opinion of Darcy begin to change? Agent searches your Jane Austen database, retrieves the relevant passages, follows character aliases, compares chapters, cites the text, explains the progression. Output, research response with citations. Again, Codex could build that agent, but Codex isn't that agent. There's also a middle ground you're already encountering. You can specialize Codex itself without building a standalone agent. OpenAI now supports things such as Codex skills, which let you teach Codex repeatable workflows, standards, and procedures. So there is effectively a spectrum. Number 1, prompt Codex. Please check accessibility. Number 2, customize Codex. Give Codex reusable instructions and skills for how you do accessibility reviews. 3, create your own accessibility system with its own model, tools, logic, and UI. 4, build a product. Users log into accessibility.example.com and use your agent without ever knowing anything about Codex. 2 and 3 are especially easy to confuse. Customizing Codex doesn't mean you've necessarily created a standalone agent application. You've made an existing general purpose coding agent better at your workflow. At number 3, you own the orchestration. And here's why companies build agents instead of just buying Codex. Imagine a company has this workflow. Every morning, inspect new customer support tickets, search the internal knowledge base, classify the problem, draft a response, identify bugs, create JIRA tickets when appropriate, and escalate billing issues to a human. Giving every employee Codex and saying, here's the prompt, paste today's tickets into Codex would be ridiculous. Instead, they build the agent. So their agent, Zendesk, knowledge base, JIRA, model, company rules, draft action. Employees might simply see a button, process ticket, or maybe they don't interact with it at all. It runs automatically. That's why building agents is such a large software development opportunity. Yeah, I'm beginning to see that. And I feel like I'm going to need to build one and still in order for this to really click and make sense. One terminology tweak from our earlier discussion, I would no longer define an agent primarily as AI that performs a specific task. That's too narrow, and it's probably what caused some of this confusion. I'd use agent, software that uses an AI model to pursue a goal, make intermediate decisions, and use tools or actions to accomplish it. Then add general purpose agent, broad domain and broad capabilities. That's codex. Specialized agent, deliberately designed around a narrower domain or workflow, the kinds of agents you're talking about building. And this gives you the key conceptual distinction. The thing you're interested in building isn't another codex. You're interested in taking agentic capability and wrapping it around a domain, workflow, data source, and interface that you define. That is much closer to ordinary software product development than the word agent makes it sound. And I suspect that is why this is suddenly starting to look much more approachable to you. You're still building applications, you're just giving part of the application the ability to reason about what to do next. So, do we feel like we understand more or less? I think I'm starting to get it. What do you guys think? Okay. Okay, so it looks like we have our API. Nice. So we should be able. Okay, so let's commit this. We should be able to see our endpoints in Postman, right? Nice. Okay. Um, prompt. What was that? Prompt 6? Prompt 6 for the API is finished. Git push origin main. Okay. So we'll copy and paste our response. Prompt 6 is done and pushed. Here's the response. And question in the chat, do we need separate module for dashboard at backend? I don't think you need one. No. I don't have a dashboard for the backend. We're just gonna npm start and fire up the server, the Express server. So no, I don't have I think by module, do you mean UI for a dashboard at the back end? No. You can build one if you want to, but I don't think you need one. So it's a good question. Okay. So I reviewed the pushed API implementation and the two core routes look consistent with the contract. Search is doing the important things correctly. It validates the query and the mode, safely builds FTS expressions, resolves, okay, blah, 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 blah. Run the actual app locally and verify the endpoints through the server. Okay. npm run dev. Tell me what to do. Yes. All right, are we ready? npm run dev. Oh, okay. So what do we want? Localhost 3000? Hang on. Localhost 3000. What is it? API. What is it? API metadata, probably? Should it just give us our list of metadata? Look at that. We have an API. We have an API. Here's our characters. Okay, let's whip out Postman. We have a little time left. Well, this is good. I mean, this kind of means then that we need to move into like the front end part of this project. I still would like to take a couple weeks off. I think that that's okay to take a couple weeks off, right? Let's open Postman and at least save our metadata and do a couple queries, shall we? So let's make a new collection. Um, we'll call this the Jane Austen e-reader. Where are you? Look at that. Look at that. We'll have to add some scripts. We'll do that next time. Oh, this is kind of nice, huh? All right, let's save. I'm just going to call this metadata. This here. All right, let's try to at least look at a couple of queries here. So we know from the last, we know from our YouTube, we could just do a plain search with a query string. So let's try that. So let's do API search q equals search q equals we'll do Lizzie for Elizabeth Bennet. Oh, did I do it wrong? API search oh, keyword or phrase. So we don't have the same flexibility here, so we have to include mode this time. Okay, no problem. So we have to include a mode equals keyword. So we'll do Lizzie and mode equals keyword. There we go. Okay, what do we have here? So here's our text. It's our mode. Ordering by relevance, ascending, results. Okay, so look at so here's the results here. There are 81 results. Interesting. So here's the object. Yeah, okay, so we knew that this is what it was going to do, right? It was going to give us a book object, a chapter object, and a paragraph object. So this is book, Pride and Prejudice, chapter 20. And the text is of Mr. Collins and Lizzie. Lizzie declares she will not have Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins begins to say that he will not have Lizzie. This is not an entire paragraph, I don't think. Okay, hang on. What do I want? So yes, it's working. This is totally working. Here's what I want to ask about. Yay. It works. So help me understand what it's returning. Not the entire paragraph. Just is it like a set amount of words before and after the query keywords? It's actually returning the entire matching paragraph, not a fixed number of words before and after the keyword. For example, your search for Lizzie returned this very short paragraph in full. Did I not look enough at the paragraphs? I mean, if this is dialogue, these could definitely be their own paragraphs. Okay, let's do something that we know would be. Let's do a different keyword then. Let's do Darcy. Let's do Mr. Darcy. Interesting. Well, it's picking up a lot of dialogue and the dialogue, those are all going to be on their own lines. I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. Okay, so here's a more substantive paragraph. Here's a normal size paragraph. Got it. This is cool. This is very cool. Okay. How many results are here? 240. Yeah, I would expect that. Okay, so then how do we filter? I think we could just add location, Pemberley. Pemberley. I don't know if I'm spelling that right. No, I think it's Pemberley. No. I might not understand. I might not understand. Well, it's okay though, because we're going to document. We're going to have well, I guess I said I wasn't going to do this anymore. This makes me feel like maybe the Friday stream this next week could be documenting everything in Postman, but I don't know. I really wanted to start working on something else. But now that I'm actually seeing data and I know that I'm not going to spend much more time beyond this, being the intermediary prompt engineer, I'm a little more excited now. So hang on. Let's try again. Filters. So if we have text and mode, okay. Let's look at this API contract. I want to see what all the endpoints are. Or what was it? So we know search, we know metadata. Here we go, right here. Mode keyword. Okay, so these are all mode keyword book equals. Am I just not spelling Pemberley correctly? Mode keyword and book. Hang on. Wait. Or is it lowercase? So I have to do it. Am I not spelling Pemberley correctly? Pemberley. Yeah, that's how you spell it. So why can I not? No location exists with ID Pemberley. Field location. What's the endpoint? Mode, book. Mode has no default, right? Mode keyword, mode phrase. Location equals. Okay, hang on. Why would this not work? Because there are two separate problems. First, your query contains a space. Okay, well, that didn't matter when I was only searching for Mr. Darcy. Location does not accept the display name Pemberley. The API contract says location filters use the opaque compound ID returned. So this location Pemberley is invalid. For Pride and Prejudice, the location ID should be Pride and Prejudice location Pemberley. So try. Oh, so okay. The colon characters are encoded, okay, because mode keyword uses and, query Mr. Darcy means find paragraphs containing both Mr. and Darcy and containing Pemberley. If you want to see the exact location IDs available, this is a nice way to inspect them. Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that we were doing this for the locations and the characters. We read through all that stuff and I still missed that. Okay. All right. I'll be honest, I missed the part where the character and location IDs were that specific. The contract makes the IDs intentionally opaque, which is correct architecturally, but it makes hand testing the API a little less intuitive. The important distinction is name, human readable, Pemberley, source ID, book scoped, ID, public API identity. The front end will shield you from this later. A user will choose Pemberley from a dropdown, but behind the scenes, the option value can be the full compound ID. So this complexity is mostly a backend API concern. You really notice it now because you're manually typing URLs. Why did we decide this was important? Because Pemberley itself is not guaranteed to be unique across the whole database. Our character and location records are scoped to a book, so the database can safely have something like Emma plus location source ID equals Hartfield, Persuasion plus location source ID equals Bath. And in principle, if two different books could both have the same source ID for different entities. So instead of exposing only Pemberley, we expose Pride and Prejudice Pemberley. That gives the API a globally unique identifier without exposing the internal SQLite integer ID. The other reason is that it prevents ambiguity when filtering. If the front end sends character equals Elizabeth Bennet, the back end would have to ask Elizabeth Bennet from which book? Today, that answer may seem obvious, but the API shouldn't depend on names or IDs happening to be unique across the current 6-book corpus. Okay. Okay, if we're building a search filter and the point is to filter across all 6 books, why can't the user just get back all possible results? Who cares if results? Who cares if Pemberley appears in more than one book? Isn't that good information for the user? Isn't that good information for the user? What if the user finds my filter and thinks, great, now I can find out if Darcy appears in more than one book. Please. Okay, so we've identified a real design mistake in the contract. We optimize the entity IDs for database correctness, but in doing so, we accidentally imposed a product behavior you never actually wanted. Selecting a character or location automatically restricts the search to that entity's owning book. That is not the same thing as filter the corpus by this character location term. Your intended behavior is much more interesting. If someone searches marriage, query marriage, character Darcy, they may reasonably want, show me every paragraph in all 6 novels containing marriage and a recognized Darcy name alias. And if Darcy unexpectedly occurs in another Austen novel, that is useful information, not a conflict to suppress. Same with Pemberley. If Pemberley appears in another novel for some reason, the search should reveal that. The entire point of a corpus database is discovering relationships and repetitions across the corpus. Where we went wrong. And honestly, I'm so glad that I'm having this experience on a personal project and figuring out these distinctions on a personal project, because this is absolutely where I would want to correct this, not in like, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think about if I was still at St. Thomas doing this, it wouldn't be the end of the world to go back and fix it, but I'm glad I'm doing it on a personal project. Okay. This is useful internally because it uniquely identifies a metadata record versus search filter meaning. A filter does not necessarily need to mean select this database record and its owning book. Because if somebody is querying, because if someone is using the keyword search, they can already narrow by book themselves. That's why I wanted the book drop-down option. Exactly. That makes the intended interaction much clearer. The book drop-down already owns the scope. Okay. So do we need to make a change to the database or just the API? Just the API contract and implementation. I do not think the database needs to change. The database already has what we need. Each character location record has its canonical name, aliases, and owning book. That owning book relationship is still useful metadata. We just shouldn't use it to automatically constrain search scope. So the change is behavioral. Keep the current database schema, keep the compound public IDs, keep character location alias lookup, remove the logic that says selected entity implies this book, remove incompatible filters for cross-book combinations, let only the explicit book parameter restrict results. Example, query letter, character Pride and Prejudice, character Darcy. Yeah. Should search all 6 books for paragraphs containing letter and Darcy's canonical or alias terms. If the user adds book Emma, then it searches only Emma for that combination and probably returns 0 results, which is perfectly valid. So this is a contract correction plus an API correction plus test fixtures correction, not a data model migration. Okay. So I'm actually going to leave it here for today. And I'll probably just fix this myself behind the scenes and get everything documented. I probably won't pick this project up again until I have like a very clear picture of how the front end should actually be working. And then we'll pick it up when we really build out the front end. So, yeah, good. I'm glad we don't have to change the database. We can just update the API. So, okay, I know that there's some stuff happening in the chat. Thank you for waiting. I don't always look at the chat if I'm actually working on something, so thank you for your patience. One moment here. Let's see what's happening. So AMD Gamer is here and says, I'm using Vue and Laravel. Backend is a separate project. NWI Dart module. Our project has item management, supplier management, expenses management. And is asking, I guess I'm not sure what you're asking me, AMD Gamer. Do you have a specific question for me? You're describing your project, but I'm not exactly sure what you're asking my opinion on. It sounds like an interesting project. I have used Vue and Laravel together before. Laravel is not my favorite, but I get that it's really, really popular and a lot of people use it. So I guess your question is you're confused on why I don't have a dashboard for my back end. I mean, not every project has a dashboard for their back end. My project is not nearly as complex as what it is that you are working on. So, bad, I'm not bad, Radine Bukit. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I watched you coding front ends without AI, paying attention to accessibility stuff, not using frameworks, and allow me to say that's very comforting and reminds me of a time when programming for the individual, let me see, programming was craftsmanship. We're going to get back to it, I promise. We're going to get back to the vanilla stuff. I wanted to, here's the thing, if you're just jumping in and you're like, what is she doing? I'm using AI to build a couple full stack apps, and we're getting the back end built first, and then we're going to go back to building that front end layer, and it's going to be all vanilla, all from scratch. Trust me, we're going to get there. So, yeah. I'm just not sure, AMD Gamer, what it is that you're asking, the question that you're asking. So, are you asking me why I don't have a dashboard for my back end? Unfortunately, I'm not able to like advise on your projects, especially not through chat. If you have questions or you have you think that I could help you with some consulting, I'll direct you to my website. You're welcome to look at my consulting rates and calendar. I can't really give you advice or help you with project advice via the chat in a live stream, unfortunately. So I apologize for that. Sounds like you're working on a project and you need some help. Good luck. Maybe Can Codex help you? Cloud Code, something like that? I'm not sure. So, okay. I think this is a good place to leave it for today. This was quite a weekend, wasn't it? A little boring, a little interesting. AMD Gamer says, no, for my project, I'm in the middle of development. AMD Gamer, I don't know what your question is. If you have a question, ask the question. I don't know what you want. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining me. It was a long weekend. I'm a little cranky. I feel like I read all of this API contract stuff and I didn't understand how specific this was going to be, but it's fine. We'll go back and modify the API. Once I have sort of a skeleton front end filter built out for this project, we'll come back and we'll do the front end work to build it out more, but I don't even have any of that planned, like the design or the UI or anything. So I'll get that figured out and then we'll come back and work on it. Come back on Tuesday this week at noon. We're going to work on our LinkedIn presentation for Thursday, which I'm pretty excited about. And yeah, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. And I will see you in my next one. Bye bye.